Turku is known as Finland's oldest city and it's more than 800 years old. It was founded in the late 13th century and it's one of only 6 medieval cities in Finland. It used to be the administrative and economic center of Finland because of its close proximity to Stockholm in Sweden, Danzig in Poland, and Lübeck in Germany. And it was also the capital of the Grand Duchy of Finland between 1809 and 1812, before the capital moved to Helsinki instead. So it's a place full of history and a very significant city in Finland. And today, you and me are gonna explore everything there is to see in Turku. Many people arrive in Turku in the harbor after disembarking one of the ferries between Sweden and Finland. And one of the first things they see when they arrive is Turku Castle. This castle dates back all the way to 1280. Sort of. As always when talking about castles, it's difficult to say exactly when it's from. Castles are rebuilt all the time. Sometimes there's a part of a castle that dates back 1,000 years. And sometimes the whole castle has been rebuilt and it's only the location that's the same. Turku Castle was rebuilt in the 1300s and then again in the mid-1500s in a Renaissance style. And then it was bombed during World War II, but it was restored after that. So depending on how you look at it, the castle is either more than 740 years old, around 460 years old, or less than 80 years old. And it just happens that there's a medieval skill at arms exhibition here today. You shouldn't expect this every time you visit Turku Castle, unfortunately. If you want to spend the night in jail, you don't have to get drunk and be arrested. All you have to do is visit Kakula Hotel. Kakula is an area of Turku with a bit of a checkered past. It used to be a poorhouse where the feeble-minded were kept away from the proper upright citizens of Finland. These days we don't have to hide away people like that. We show them off on YouTube and TikTok instead. Feeble-minded people were called Kako in Finnish, and that's where Kakula got its name. It was also a prison in the 18 and 1900s, all the way up to the beginning of the 2000s. But these days you can find restaurants, a spa, a hotel, and a Kakula brewing company here instead. This former prison and poorhouse is now quite a trendy area of Turku. It's just a pity that it's 9 in the morning right now. It's a bit early to try that beer. The Aura River that runs through Turku is one of the most important rivers in Finland. People have inhabited the area around Aura for more than 6,000 years. In Swedish, Turku is named Åbo, which roughly translates to dwelling by the river. And the river in question is of course the magnificent Aura River. On the other side of the river you can see District 4 of Turku, also called Martinsbacken or Martin's Hill. It's named after the Martin Church, which in turn is named after Martin Luther, founder of the Lutheran Church. And it's apparently quite a nice neighborhood of Turku, but that's not where I'm going right now. If you want to see the Turku Archipelago and take a trip to Naantali, then you can take the steamboat Ukkapekka. Aside from the gorgeous views and the seafood lunch for those who like seafood, which I don't, there's another reason to go to Naantali. You can visit Moomin World, and if you don't know about the Moomin, then you should check out my video all about Moomin World and these Finnish trolls. No, they're not white hippos, they're Finnish trolls, and don't you dare mistake them for hippos. The archipelago actually stretches out all the way to the Åland Islands from Turku, but I'm of course not going that far on this trip. Finland is the happiest country in the world, and Turku is like a condensed version of Finland. There's gorgeous nature, culture, technology, and a big focus on quality of life. Now, I'm just guessing, but I don't think that Finnish people see themselves as particularly happy. It's more that they're content. Content with their way of life, content to live close to nature, and content with what their country has to offer. Maybe being happy is not so much about feeling joy as not having all that much to complain about. And Finland is also the only country in the world that has a word for kalsarikennit, to sit at home and drink in your underwear with no intention of going out. I'm not saying that happiness and kalsarikennit go hand in hand, but I'm not saying that it doesn't. If you don't want to go on a steamboat, you can also rent electrical boats during summer. You can rent Låna boats for 63 euros per hour, which is actually a bit steep in my view, but if you're a group of people, then it makes perfect sense. For some reason, there's a guy sitting there playing sounds of a child crying. I'm not sure if it's art or if he wants people to pay him to shut up. You can also visit the Apothecary Museum and Café Quenzel. They apparently have a wonderful afternoon tea, and it's all served in a 19th century setting. Many people say that that's one of the highlights of Turku, but personally I think that there's something else nearby that I wanna check out. The Turku Market Hall has lovely sausages and cheeses and lots of yummy things to eat. And they have one of my most favorite things in the entire world, Karjalan piirakka. Karelian pastries are simple rye dough pastries filled with rice porridge and served with egg butter. Although they didn't actually have any egg butter here, and they're cold, but they're still completely amazing. Okay, some egg butter as well would have been nice, but this is still good, and beggars can't be choosers. They may not look like much, but this is the ambrosia of the gods. Turku is full of old houses and cobbled streets. Well, maybe not all that many cobbled streets, but this is one at least. Klostermellangatan, the medieval main street, used to be one of the most important parts of town during the Middle Ages. And it's still well worth a visit today. If you want to see a lot of old houses, then you should visit the open-air museum Klosterbacken, Luosterinmäki. This is the only continuous part of Turku that survived the Great Fire of 1827, so you can still see houses that are more than 200 years old here. This used to be at the edge of town where housing was cheaper, but these days it's pretty much in the central parts of Turku. You can find shops and cafes here, but the main attraction is of course to look at these well-preserved houses and imagine that you're transported back hundreds of years in time. This is a good place to talk a bit about the history of Turku. Finland used to be part of Sweden for hundreds of years, up until 1809, when Finland was annexed by Russia after the Finnish War. Turku became the capital of the new autonomous Grand Duchy of Finland, but that only lasted 3 years. In 1812, Tsar Alexander I wanted to move the capital to Helsinki instead, because it was closer to St. Petersburg. Despite the Russians doing their best to suppress it, Finland got more and more independence until they finally declared themselves an independent nation in 1917. But you can still see traces of Russian rule. The name Turku comes from the Russian word for square, for example. And Turku, or Åbo in Swedish, still officially has 2 languages, Swedish and Finnish. Even though Swedish and Swedes aren't always seen in the best possible light over here, so I'm happy that I'm speaking English today. I mentioned that there's a lot of culture in Turku. Finland's first university was founded in Turku, and Finland's first record label and rock concert took place in Turku as well. And art is something Turku is quite famous for. You can visit the Turku Art Hall for free, and there are many other galleries and museums nearby. The Turku Biological Museum, the Turku Art Museum, and Forum Marinum, for example. Oh, and Ars Nova as well. And of course, the Sibelius Museum. Next to Turku Cathedral, which itself is a must-see in Turku, because it's the only medieval basilica in Finland. Anyway, next to it you find the Sibelius Museum. The museum has a collection of musical instruments from all over the world, and of course a lot of information about Juan Sibelius. Sibelius wrote a lot of symphonies and tone poems, and he's most known for Finlandia and the Karelia Suite. He's known as Finland's greatest composer, and people credit him for helping build the country's national identity at a time when there was a lot of Russification going on. So this isn't just a museum to a Finnish composer, it's a museum to a Finnish national icon. And speaking of national icons, Turku Cathedral is considered to be the most important religious building in Finland. It's central in Finnish Christmas celebrations, and it's one of the most recognizable symbols of Turku. It was built at the end of the 13th century, and it's considered an important part of Finnish architectural history. Right across the river from the cathedral, you find Vähätori Square. Vähätori actually means the small square, so you should probably skip the square part, otherwise you're saying the little square. From here you can get a lovely view of the Aura River with the cathedral in the background. And this is also one of the most important meeting points in Turku, with lots of shops and markets. A bit further north from here you can also visit the Tervatori, the Tar Square, for even more views of Aura. But I have something special that I want to show off a bit further north than that, so come on, let's go! Posanka is a statue showing a hybrid of a marzipan pig and a rubber duck. It's intended to be a cautionary piece of art, warning against modern genetic engineering. But personally, I just think that this pig duck is absolutely hilarious, and you should definitely check it out if you visit Turku. And that's about it for this quick visit to Turku, Finland's oldest city. I hope you found it interesting. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.